Hey, Prince Magnum, it's been a long time since you've done Sober Talk. Isn't it about time you do a video? Yes, it is. It's been too long. Stick around. We're going to dive right in to Sober Talk. All right. Quite a few stories, but we still got more. Um, Let me tell you all another great story. When Princess Faye and I moved to Bonne Terre, it only took a couple of months, and I went ahead and stood for the alternate DCM position for the district down here. And getting involved and everything, it was exciting to handle that alternate DCM position, and went to my first area assembly in quite a long time. And while at the area assembly, Princess Faye went up with us, and we had a great time at the area assembly. Princess Faye even got involved in a few things. It was really neat for her to get involved, in service. And what ended up happening was they wanted a share session. How does money and spirituality and the groups all work together? And I went up and told my story. Went up and told a kind of a version of what I did the time before. Um, talking, but it was more focused on how the groups loved me back to health. And when I told that, I even got to do the joke about how some things haven't changed because my hair was down. I was wearing all black, an all black suit and things like that. So I got to do that joke again, and so I told that story, and of course. This time, if I remember correctly, I got a full-on standing ovation because evidently what I said really struck the right chord, and so it was really awesome to do that. And I probably spoke for about 5 minutes, and I went back to my seat, and there were some people from District 16 who I knew very well, because District 16 has Washington, Missouri, Union, Missouri, and places like that. So that was a really exciting moment for me to see those wonderful people again, especially at the district level. Well, I looked at my DCM, and I'm like, well, and he's like, that was awesome, man. I look over at Princess Faye, and you know, and I'm like, well, what'd you think, honey? What I had to say, and Princess Faye said something that at that time it kind of deflated my ego, which was a good thing. But since that time, I've kind of taken a different perspective. She looks at me and says, "Honey, it's nothing I haven't gotten used to, you doing." When you get up, and at that time I was like, it kind of deflated my ego. But since that time, when I think about it now, um, you know, the thing you have to remember is yeah, it deflated my ego, but the reality of it is that, um, I've by that time, me doing this, Princess Faye had seen me speak in front of several groups numerous times. And, it's one of those things. She's gotten used to seeing me do this. So for her, this was nothing new. This is what she expects out of me. When I get up in front of a group of people, I'm going to tell you, sobriety as I see it from the heart. And, so for her, this was what she expects out of me. And if I had done any less, she would have been concerned. So that means that at that particular moment, I was dead on exactly who I was supposed to be as far as sobriety went. So today, her saying that when she did means more to me than, what it did back then. And quite possibly this is one of my all-time favorite stories in sobriety because it was that moment that she, that I guess you could say she reiterated that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do, and I was doing it with the heart and spirit of someone who's come to love sobriety. Let's get on with the next story. This used to be, at one time, probably one of my all-time favorite stories. I was coming up on 2 years sober. Well, I'd actually just made 2 years sober, and I got asked to come to a newcomers meeting and tell my story. So Dad, at that time I was having a lot of problems and was going through some real heavy stuff. So I jumped in, we jumped in the truck and we went up to the Friday night newcomers meeting, and I told my story as it was up to 2 years sober. And when I did this, my son Prince Python was there. He was a month old. He was a definite gift of sobriety. Even though his mother and I were no longer together, he was still a major gift of sobriety. So I'm telling my story, and my dad was sitting there listening, and then we get in the truck, and we're headed home after that meeting, and Dad looks over. He says, "Son, I'm proud of you because you're my son. That's kind of come to be expected." He said, "I'm supposed to be proud of you. You're my son." He said, "But tonight," he said, I heard you talk with a passion I've never heard you talk with before." And he said, "And I will be the first to say, again, I'm proud of you. You're my son. But tonight was probably the most proud of you I have ever been in my life." And I was blown away. That was, really important to me. And wow. I can't say enough about that particular moment. Um, it was special to me. Dad and I don't talk anymore, but just because him and I don't talk doesn't mean I don't love him, and it doesn't mean that part of my story means any less to me than any of the others. Um, it's still very important to me that my dad listened to that, and to me it was just amazing, through and through. So there's that one. Well, there you have it. Some of my favorite stories in sobriety. We obviously did not cover them all. We covered only a handful of them, but there's a lot of stories to talk about. And if you will, this is just kind of some of them that I've told before, but times have changed in how I might have viewed them when I told them before in an older video. You know, they still mean something, but they mean a little bit more than what they might have when I told them at that time. So I felt it was important to tell them again. Along with that, there's gosh, um, there's still so many more to tell. And if there's enough people that watch this video, of course, we're gonna, I'll definitely sit down and tell a lot more of these stories. But for right now, this is, I guess you could say, a good teaser into, what sobriety has meant to me. And it means an awful lot to me. So that brings us to kind of a good point where I want to go ahead and start ending it. First and foremost, I want to give a special shout out to a very good friend of mine, my dear friend, Queen Mercury. Queen Mercury was the one who asked me to do this video. So Queen Mercury, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, asking for a sober talk video. It's not every day that another YouTube creator goes out of their way and asks for these sober, the sober talk videos. A lot of people, they like to hear that I'm living sober, but they don't necessarily ask for the videos on those stories. So the fact that I get to show you all that I'm a good storyteller and talking about sobriety, I really want to thank you for asking me to do that. It means so much to me that you asked me to do that. Along with that, I want to thank all of these fine folks right here. These folks are hardworking people who continue to ask me to put out the content that I do. They continue to ask me, like you would not believe, to continue to put out that content that kind of shape the Prince Magnum channel to what it is right now. And we continue to grow, not necessarily in as far as subscribers. We continue to grow content that encompasses so much that even if you were to ask me today what the Prince Magnum channel is all about, I can only say is the Prince Magnum channel is just showing people how to live life to its fullest without a drink or a drug. So these people continue to push me in that direction to show more of that. So normally this is the spot where I kind of, maybe I shout out the Patreon account, or sometimes I might even go so far as to say certain things in a certain way. But because this is sober talk, I'm going to say things a little bit differently than I normally do. So, if you will, for all of you out there, I hope at day's end that every last one of you need me as much as I need you. And that includes all of you out there in the YouTube content creator community and in the streaming community. And those of you who are just on YouTube, you may not necessarily have content, but you watch YouTube. So I need all of you just as much as I also need the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And as always, for all of you out there, if no one out there has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.